I was born in 1932, September the 19th, delivered by my uncle, Doc Ayers, and assisted by Aunt Isabel. The name I was given was William Edward McCollough. I was called Billy all my life. Now, my dad, for some reason, and it wasn't the family, they called him Peck, and I never understood where that name came from. And they used to call me Little Peck. Sometimes they added the ER on the end of that. I grew up in a very small village called Trump, Maryland. There were 3 people living in that town, and the 3 was my mom, dad, and myself. Well, I grew up in a general merchandise store, and everybody liked to talk to me, and I would run around the store grabbing things and knocking things over, and eventually started to help my dad by waiting on people. So my childhood, a lot of it was spent in the store. And then when I went outside to play, I played cops and robbers and hid in the barn and had a good time, good life. My dad sort of developed a store around what is today known as a Walmart store. There was everything in there that anybody would want. The farmers would come in and they would get their blue jeans and shoes and feed for the cows. And the women came there to get all the other necessities. We had groceries that were in cans and on the shelves. We had fish that was very popular. So it was a busy place. And that's what I grew up in. And on Saturday night, Dad couldn't get the people to leave. The farmers like to come in and talk about how their corn is growing. And they would sit there and eat peanut out of a huge burlap bag that they enjoyed very much. Sunday morning, though, was different. Everybody went to church. It was all church. And in my family, after that, it was family day. And we piled in the car, and Dad would go to one of the farms that were run by my uncles and aunts, and we'd spend time there talking to them. Particularly, I remember Aunt May Burns. She had 3 daughters, and those 3 daughters just talked constantly. And we would go down and I'd listen to that for a couple hours, and then we'd pile back in the car and go to Uncle Horace and Aunt Isabel's. And there my double cousins lived, Ronnie and Eddie. Double cousin meaning that my father married my uncle's sister, and that way we had a close-knit family. They were called double cousins. Dad was certainly involved with people all the time, and he was well liked. He was fair as a storekeeper was concerned, but he was very busy. He did wiring, plumbing, and ran the store. He had people working for him at the store. They helped to take care of the customers. Dad was someone who liked ice cream, and he loved chocolate ice cream, and every night before going to bed, there was a large bowl of chocolate ice cream. He would put it in the stove and heat it up a little bit, and then it would disappear. Now, the ice cream was basically Pimp Supreme from Lancaster, PA. But sometimes a neighbor would make ice cream and bring it over in big 5-gallon sort of bins. And that ice cream was hand-dipped and was sold very quickly. And especially the chocolate. Dad just loved chocolate ice cream. Dad always played drums. He had the snare drums and the little drums, the cymbal, and all sorts of stuff that you use to make noise. And when Mom and Dad moved to Arma Village and they went to the Methodist Church, they met up with a couple of people. One was the undertaker, the other was an insurance agent, and the other one worked for GE. They decided they were starting out having fun every once in a while playing their instruments. One was a banjo, one was a violin, and I don't know what the others were. Anyway, so they started playing, and they got interested in square dancing, going to those dances and playing the music to support the square dancing. And then they decided, well, they're having a parade in Towson on 4th of July. Let's get in it. We'll get a truck. So they got in it, they had a truck, and they were playing music on the truck going through Towson town. And they really struck up a good relationship. And they played for a lot of things that the church, especially square dances and things like that. So, and they were nice people. They went to Ocean City often together, stayed at the Plim Hinman Hotel, and had a lot of good social life. Now, Dad, in his business, would bring crabs up to the store to sell. So every once in a while, he would have a crab bake at the house. And they would invite 30 or 40 people to the house, and they'd sit out in the backyard and eat crabs. And he set up card tables and gave everybody a bucket to throw the crab shells in and things like that. Now, preparing those crabs, you had to buy them live. So Dad would go down, he knew where to go to get the crabs, and come up with baskets of crabs, and they'd put them on the stove and steam them. And he liked to tease Mom, my wife, because he would always slip a couple out on the floor, and they would go crawling after her, and she would scream And they would pinch if they got a hold of you. They didn't fool around. So he had this crab feast every year. It was well attended. When he retired, the first thing he did, he bought a new car, and we traveled the United States. We went the southern route down to Mississippi and out to California. And came back up through Montana and into Canada. And we happened to catch Canada when they were having a World's Fair. So I remember going to the fair and then eventually home. That took one whole summer. And it was fun. It really, Mom was the navigator. Dad did most of the driving. He limited it to 400 miles a day, no matter what. So sometimes we may have only driven 40 to see what we wanted to see, but nothing more than 400. And that was good. He took pictures. He had a motion type camera. He didn't get a lot of good pictures from that. He did early on, when I was 8 years old, took Mom and I to the World's Fair in New York City. And we have a lot of interesting pictures. The RCA building, the big companies had big buildings there. And I remember going to them. Mom spent a lot of her time behind the door in the house. The store and the house were connected through one doorway. And she was back there getting meals for us and doing the laundry. She had the laundry out in the morning by 5 o'clock on Mondays. And it was up drying on the clothesline early. And I think she was the earliest washer in the area. Now, she helped in the store too. She'd go in and wait on customers. But mainly, she made sure that the family was taken care of. Well, I went to a real nice school that I had to be picked up by a bus. My school days I well remember because I went to the 7th District Consolidated School, and there were 7 grades in that school. And to get to that school, I was picked up by a bus. And the bus was driven by my uncle, Uncle Elmer Slade. And he had me sit every morning right behind him. He said, "I don't want you messing around." So I was well behaved and delivered to school each morning. I finished in the 7th grade when I was 11 or 12 years old. But unfortunately, That morning, my dad walked in to the kitchen and said, well, we're going to sell the business and we're going to move to Towson, Maryland, and you will leave now and go down there and start going to high school. In other words, you will not go to the 8th grade, you will skip right into high school. That was quite unusual for me because I won't be home anymore.